The end goal is that you're just going to be using a screw and the thing that you're going to screw in with, and you're done. Today we're going to be looking at fixing arms on Marvel Legends figures. So a little while back I was perusing various Facebook groups looking for deals, and I found somebody that had posted a cel-shaded Spider-Man with a broken arm. So I went ahead and bought it, and I'm gonna see if we can fix it. So I've not really looked too deep into how to fix this before, and I came up with some ideas of how we could do it, so hopefully it works. And unfortunately this guy didn't come with any accessories. It literally came with just this, so no extra hands or anything like that, but that's okay. The point of it was to see if I could do it. And we'll just take a closer look real quick. So there should be a peg here that's rounded that was torn off. And I think what had happened was that it got ripped off inside of there, and then the previous owner had kind of like dug it out, because if you look inside, you can kind of see how like cut up it is, probably again from the digging out. So unfortunately, I don't have the original piece to try to reattach it in some kind of way. So we will have to address how we can reattach the arm without that original piece. So my first idea is to use a screw, but I'm not thinking of using just any kind of screw, but a self-tapping hex screw. In particular, I bought these. So with these screws, you can see that the head is rounded. You can see that it's kind of thick. It's not tapered like what you think a typical screw might look like. And so I saw that this would actually be a good fit for it. Now, unfortunately, this is not, because this ends up being just a little bit too small. I was trying to 3D design a piece that could fit over it, like a little sleeve, to make it the right size, but the tolerances were just too small to make it work just right. So I ended up buying different sizes. So just so you know, this one I bought was marked as an M2 screw. So then I decided to go with an M3 screw, and that was this guy. So this one, as you can see, is quite a bit bigger, but then this ends up being way too big. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and pop off Spidey's arm so you can really see just how big of a difference they are. So as usual, we have our bowl, we got our hot water. So here's what the peg should look like. That's the one that exists compared to the one that does not. Here is the first screw that I bought, and you can see it is close, but it's still just a little bit small. And then the big one is definitely just too big. And so I went ahead and ordered another one, and this is the M2.5 size. So if you compare the M2.5 with the peg size for Spider-Man, it's pretty darn close. So basically, I'm just gonna screw this right into this guy and then attach the arm, and hopefully it'll just work. So let's give it a shot and see how we go. So the M2.5 size needs a 2mm hex. I'm not sure how that sizing works, but that's just kind of what I ended up with. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try pushing it in and screwing it, because again, this is a self-tapping screw. So I got it in there, but it's kind of crooked. So I'm gonna just pull it out just a little bit and then straighten it and try again. Okay, I got that in fairly straight. Maybe still a little bit crooked, but I think it should be okay. Okay, that guy's in there. You can see that by getting it straight, you don't see the screw puncture through on any other side. So let's go ahead and try putting the arms on and see how it looks. So again, we're just gonna take the arm and we're gonna dip in the hot water. And I think 15-20 seconds should be sufficient to soften it up enough for it to fit around. Okay, so as you can see, I've had a bit of a wardrobe change, and that's because as I was recording the original video, I determined that the length of the screw that I had was actually too long. What happened was that I screwed it into a point where this part of the arm could no longer articulate correctly. I did go ahead and try like cutting it down to a shorter length, and it did work, but I'm wanting this to be something that's very easy for anybody to do, right? Because the end goal is that you're just going to be using a screw and the thing that you're going to screw in with, and you're done. So I stopped the video, I ordered the thing, it took like another 2 to 3 weeks to get here. So this video has taken me like 2+ months to actually do because of how long it took me to wait for each set of screws to arrive. In any case, I got them all, and I will link the correct ones in the description below. So if you want to do that, then you can find the links there. And otherwise, let's see how well this came out. So you can see he now has a metal peg for an arm. And the first thing you might notice is that the original plastic bit in between is just as thick as our new peg. And that's not entirely accurate. So what happens is, because we're screwing into it, so it displaces the plastic and pushes that out a bit. So that's why it appears to be a little bit thicker. But because I never actually drilled out plastic, that means that it's all still there. So while this looks thicker than this side in the middle, it's not. It's still basically the same thing. Otherwise, it is definitely in there very rigidly. I have actually pulled off the arm and this doesn't move whatsoever, so I'm not worried about this coming out again. But now let's go ahead and pop the arms back on and see how well the articulation still works. So first, let's just do a shake test so you can see that I can shake them and the arm is still attached, so we're not worried about that. You can see that the arm still can go around just fine. You can see that his arm articulates just the way you would expect it to articulate. Right? It still comes up like that. Still goes back down just fine. The butterfly joint still works just fine. Nothing wrong with that. Now, the only thing that you might notice in my particular case is that you can still see just a slight gap. Now, comparing that to the other side, where this one is not broken, there's way less gap, right? But to me, I think this is going to be dependent on a couple of things. One being that you can push it up a little bit and it hides it a little bit more. The other being your particular situation. You could possibly even consider shaving down the nub before you screw it in a little bit more, just to give it a little bit less length, right? So that might work here really well. I don't want to do that though. Although if you're interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, for all intents and purposes, I would consider that fixed. I think that works really well. I mean, really, once you get it posed anyway, then you're not going to notice the gap that much, especially if you're not even like looking directly at that part of the arm, because usually you're going to have him in some kind of really cool pose and it's going to be on the back side of it or something like that, where you're going to have his arms up in a fighting stance, so you're still not going to see it anyway. The fact that it's still attached and articulates, I think, is really the main goal of fixing an arm like this. Now, one last thing is I do want to show that even though this screw worked really well for Spider-Man, that doesn't mean it's going to work for every kind of Marvel Legends or Power Rangers figure. So we're talking Hasbro figures, right? And what I want to do is I want to show a comparison of the peg of the Spider-Man arm versus other sized figures. So first, I've got Ant-Man, just because it's using the Pizza Spidey body, obviously a very, very popular body that was used for a very long time. So as you can see with the Ant-Man one, it is actually quite a bit bigger, to the point where I don't know if the screw that I'm showing you would actually work very well. Here's a Power Rangers Lightning Collection Metallic Red Ranger. And here's how the two pegs match up. This one is pretty close in size, so the screw that I'm using might actually work just fine for this situation. Here's a MCU Mr. Knight. Here are the pegs side by side, and then here's them directly. Same situation where the Mr. Knight one is a bit bigger. Here's our 80th Iron Man. You can see that the 80th Iron Man one is actually quite a bit wider than our retro Spidey body. Here's an 80th Thor, and this one is even larger than the Iron Man one by quite a bit. Finally, I know it's silly, but let's do a Hulk one. So the Hulk one is obviously very, very different and is a whole different situation if you actually had a broken Hulk arm, which I think odds of that are pretty slim, but just so you can see it. Now, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and link all of the different screws that I used in the description, although I'll specify which one is the one that I did use as the final one for this guy. But now that you get the idea, you can see that it's actually fairly simple to fix an arm. I think especially using the self-tapping screw is, I think, the best way to do this, just because you get it in, you start screwing, and it'll go in, and then you're done. Now, if you like retro Spidey, but you don't like how it's painted, then check out my video over here where I removed the paint and show you just how easy it is.